What if Khal Drogo lived and invaded Westeros with Daenerys? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Before we start, if this video gets 3,000 likes, we'll make a part 2. Daenerys watches Khal Drogo riding across the Dothraki Sea with growing strength. It was almost a week since his injury after fighting Khal Drogo's Khalasar. Despite ordering the magi Mirri Maz Duu to treat him, Drogo had also ordered that those skilled in healing within his Khalasar also treat him. They gave him herbs and potions to consume to restore his strength while replacing the coverings for his injury with traditional Dothraki treatments. This did the trick, as the Khal slowly regained his strength. With that newfound strength comes his plan to conquer Westeros. He did not forget the assassination attempt on Daenerys. Now the Great Khal is ready to begin planning. Khal Drogo soon sets out west to the Free Cities in search of ships. Word is sent ahead to Magister Illyrio Mopatis to prepare for this invasion. Though only a merchant, the Magister has many connections, and ships are soon assembled in Pentos. But to assemble a ship to ferry 40,000 warriors is no simple affair. It will take many months, and as these preparations are made, the situation in the Seven Kingdoms changes drastically. While Khal Drogo and Daenerys survive, King Robert is not so lucky, as he is gored to death by a boar while hunting. His Hand of the King, Ned Stark, soon follows in a palace coup, plunging the Seven Kingdoms into the War of the Five Kings, leaving no one truly prepared for the invasion. The initial plan is for the Dothraki to land directly at the Crownlands and march on the capital, but Jorah discourages this idea as they do not have the means to besiege the capital. Instead, he suggests invading the Stormlands. They currently have little strength at sea and will ensure their landing is unopposed. The only problem is that Renly Baratheon has already called his banners and boasts a powerful army as he joined Reach forces. However, this only amuses Khal Drogo, who says that armies do not frighten him. Soon enough, the makeshift armada sets sail and lands off the coast of the Stormlands. The Seven Kingdoms is taken off guard, as Jorah had opted to not send any letters after this, throwing his full support behind Daenerys. The Stormlands burn quickly. Villages are emptied, their meager defenses swept aside. Women, children, and men scatter into the wilderness or fall beneath the rocks. Smoke rises into the sky in thick plumes. Those few lords of the Stormlands remain hesitant to engage, as most of their fighting men are off with Renly down west. When word reaches the Baratheon king, he speeds ahead to face this horde, seeing this as a chance to prove that he is the true king. Renly sends assurances to his Stormlands that help is coming, rallying his cavalry and marching back east with all speed, hoping to catch these invaders unprepared, leaving his infantry to struggle behind. They pass through the ruins of towns and holdfasts unfortunate enough to fall before their might. Although Daenerys urges compassion, as these are the people she hopes to rule, there is only so much she can do. Although busy raiding, the Dothraki scouts learn of the approaching army long before they arrive, and allow Khal Drogo to reform his army in the open plains near Fellwood long before Renly arrives. Khal Drogo's screamers appear on the horizon like a black tide, while Renly orders his knights to charge. For a moment, it seems the Dothraki might falter, but Drogo smiles, and his lines split apart like water around the knights' charge, surrounding and cutting them off from retreat. The battle descends into chaos as the arrows rain down on them. Renly's knights struggle against the Dothraki's unorthodox tactics. Many fall, are wounded or dead, while their mounts are killed underneath them. Suddenly, the iron wedge Renly rallies turns into a disorganized mob. Once this happens, riders with Arrakis carve through the men while arrows find weak points in their defenses. The Stormlands fight valiantly, and a few brave knights lead small groups of men in a charge. These prove effective as the unarmored Dothraki fall before them. The most successful of these is a charge organized by Loras Tyrell and Randyll Tarly, which manages to gain enough momentum to smash through the Dothraki surrounding them. This opens a gap for about 3,000 men to escape in good order. At the center of this battle, Renly, surrounded by Robar Royce and Gaiard Morrigan, fight to rally their forces. Drogo himself cuts down Sir Gaiard Morrigan in a brutal duel, his arak cleaving through the knight's helm. Meanwhile, his blood riders pull Renly from his horse and take him captive. Seeing him fall, the rest of Renly's host breaks. Some yield before the Dothraki, while others scatter into the Kingswood, where the Dothraki have a harder time finding them. As dawn breaks, Khal Drogo surveys the field of victory. Thousands of corpses litter the plain, and the survivors are herded into chains, including many highborn prisoners like Brienne of Tarth, Robar, and Lord Eastermount. But the greatest of them is Renly Baratheon, stripped of his armor, dragged before him. Drogo dismounts, towering over the captured lord. For a moment, the Khal regards Renly with disdain before turning away.
The Khal says this man is weak, and his lands now belong to the Khaleesi.
But soon, one more prisoner joins them. The Dothraki scouts find a man shadowing their camp and brings them forward. It is an older man, his cloak covering his face. But his movements are fluid, and the staff in his hand looks more like a weapon than a walking stick. He allows the guards to drag him forward as Drogo watches impassively from atop a low dais, Daenerys by his side. Jorah translates.
The Khal demands to know who you are. I am Sir Barristan Selmy, one of the Kingsguard. I come to pledge my sword to Daenerys Targaryen.
The guards laugh, prodding him with the butts of their spears. One spits near him, sneering. Though their words are unintelligible, Barristan understands enough. Before the guards can react, he moves with a speed that belies his age. When they prod at him again, he catches the spear by the haft and pulls the man forward, where he thrusts his palm into the guard's throat, sending him toppling. When the other raises his weapon, Sir Barristan slams his staff down on his foot before swinging it across his face. The Dothraki camp falls silent, stunned by the display. Drogo's eyes narrow, a glimmer of respect flashing in them. Barristan tosses the staff aside and straightens his cloak. He strides toward the cluster of captured knights and men-at-arms, who are chained and guarded nearby. The captives stir, murmurs spreading through the ranks. The reverence in which these knights regard this old man surprises the Dothraki.
I am Sir Barristan Selmy, known as Barristan the Bold. I fought beside your fathers, your uncles, and your brothers. I served your kings, and now I serve Daenerys Stormborn, the true queen of Westeros. I offer any man here the chance to stand with me, to reclaim your honor, and to fight for the rightful ruler of the Seven Kingdoms.
The knights glance at each other, hesitating. Then, one by one, they begin to kneel. Their chains clink as they bow their heads, pledging themselves to Daenerys. Only a handful, including Renly, Brienne of Tarth, and Robar Royce, refuse to move.
I will not betray my king.
Loyalty is a rare thing. Hold to it if you must. But know this, loyalty to a false king will not save Westeros.
Rise, all of you. Serve me, and together we can take what is mine.
The Storm Lords and Knights rise to their feet, the chains cast aside. The camp buzzes with newfound energy. Khal Drogo watches the scene unfold with silent approval, the faintest of smiles curling his lips. Barristan Selmy is made the leader of all Westerosi soldiers in the Khal's army, as well as Drogo and Daenerys' advisor. For this, he convinces his house, House Selmy, to pledge fealty to Daenerys. Soon, other houses join in, either those taken captive or those with secret loyalties to the Targaryens. The Conningtons of Griffin's Roost, the Carons of Nightsong, and the Fells of Fellwood are just a few among many who pledge allegiance. But not all castles fall so easily. Storm's End remains defiant, especially when they receive unexpected naval support from Stannis, who sees an opportunity and convinces Contre Penrose to pledge support. Khal Drogo does not remain in the Stormlands for long either, as that is only half of Renly's domains. The Reach remains free, and the bulk of the king's forces remain there, and they decide to wipe them out first before moving on to other kings. The heat of the marches clings to the air, and the Dothraki camp sprawls across the parched earth. Khal Drogo sits in his tent, Daenerys at his side as they greet another group of Westerosi who wish to meet them. A murmur spreads through the camp as Oberyn Martell strides into the heart of the encampment, flanked by Dornish spearmen with sun and spear banners. The Red Viper's stride is bold and unafraid.
Khal Drogo, I am Oberyn Martell of Dorne, and I bring an offer of alliance from my house to you in the Khaleesi. As you can see, our lands are barren, and the only thing that will quench my thirst is Lannister blood. The Great Khal says that all those willing to pledge their support to help his Khaleesi take the Iron Throne are welcome into his Khalasar.
Excellent. But alliance must be forged with more than words. May I be so bold as to propose a union between Daenerys Targaryen and my nephew, Quentyn Martell? Both the Dornish and the Dothraki accept polygamy, do they not? Surely a second husband would strengthen your claim and bind our houses.
Khal Drogo's laughter is immediate, deep, and rumbling.
You would give her another husband? My Khaleesi is not a woman to be shared, like lesser cows squabbling over spoils. However, if you truly wish to secure this pact in marriage, Khal Drogo might be persuaded to take a second wife. I have a niece, Arianna Martell. She is Dornish in every way, beautiful, cunning, and ambitious. She would make a fitting match for a Khal's household.
Then, with a sudden, deliberate motion, he draws a dagger and slams it into the wooden table before Drogo. The guards tense, and Drogo's hand moves instinctively towards his arak. But Oberyn remains calm, his voice low and venomous.
Know this, Khal Drogo. I have seen the people of my house mistreated once. If you mistreat her, you will face the wrath of Dorne. And not even your swiftest horse will let you outrun my wrath.
One of the Dothraki guards lunges at Oberyn, but the Red Viper is faster. He sidesteps gracefully, slashing his dagger and leaving a shallow gash on the man's arm. The guard stumbles back, clutching his wound as his face contorts in agony. The poison takes hold almost immediately, leaving him writhing on the ground. Drogo watches the scene unfold, and to everyone's surprise, he begins to laugh. He bellows something to Jorah, and the other Dothraki begin to join him.
You are strong, Dornishman. Bring this Arianna to me, and I vow she will be treated as well as my Khaleesi. I will send word to my niece. She will decide for herself if you are a worthy partner for her. The great Khal says you shall not find him lacking. But before you go, he invites you to share a drink with him so that he may toast his new bride and his new uncle.
Oberyn wipes his dagger clean and sheathes it, a smile forming on his face. He raises his glass and toasts to Dorne and vengeance. Khal Drogo's Dothraki riders sweep through the open plains. Their ferocity leaves many Westerosi forces scattered and terrified. At the same time, Dornish spearmen under Oberyn Martell emerge from the Red Mountains, while Barristan Selmy leads a disciplined contingency of defectors and former knights. His presence alone gives Daenerys a veneer of legitimacy as several houses swap sides to join her. Randyll Tarly proves to be a formidable adversary. He positions his forces at natural choke points to slow the Dothraki advance, maintains strict discipline in his troops, and refuses to chase after them in their feigned retreats. Though they cannot stop the horde completely, Tarly ensures the Reach survives to fight another day. In contrast, Loras Tyrell and other less experienced commanders are rash and eager to prove themselves. They launch reckless charges and even try to rescue Renly. While they achieve some minor victories, their forces are often overextended and vulnerable to counterattacks. The Dornish's sudden arrival creates chaos, sweeping through several border castles and showing no mercy to their ancestral rivals in the Reach. Barristan Selmy leads his Westerosi through gaps in the Reach's defenses. His presence is a beacon to discontented Reach lords who feel abandoned by House Tyrell's focus on Renly's ambitions. House Florent, Oakhart, Beesbury, and several minor houses swear fealty to Daenerys. Despite Randyll Tarly's discipline and the defiance of key strongholds, the coalition's momentum is unstoppable. However, the strongest castles remain unyielding. Highgarden, Old Town, and Horn Hill, Randyll are practically untouched. The Arbor, rich in ships and wine, becomes a haven for those fleeing the Dothraki onslaught. Like the Stormlands, the Reach remains defiant, and pockets of resistance burn brightly. This causes strain in the coalition as time drags on. The Dornishmen, longtime rivals of both the Reach and the Stormlands, are wary of their allies, with their only desire being revenge. The Stormlanders, meanwhile, view the Dornish with suspicion and bristle at the Dothraki's customs, especially their casual pillaging and destruction. The Reach sees their home bearing the brunt of the invasion, as even after they surrender, Khal Drogo enacts harsh demands. The Dothraki, for their part, see all Westerosi as weak and contemptible. although Daenerys tries to limit the destruction, ordering her advisors to enforce some semblance of restraint. However, Khal Drogo is indifferent to her pleas, reminding her that the ways of the Dothraki are not to be denied.
We take what is ours, moon of my life. This land is not theirs any longer. It belongs to the Khalasar.
Daenerys' attempts to rule as a queen clash with Drogo's customs as a Khal. She seeks to win hearts and minds, but the Dothraki's brutality alienates many. In the towns they capture, they don't greet her with celebration or welcome, but distrust and fear. Soon the seeds of rebellion are sown. In the Stormlands, Stannis Baratheon's limited forces wreak havoc on supply lines and isolate Dothraki warbands. His knowledge of the rugged terrain gives him an edge, and he manages to hold key positions, such as Storm's End. With the southern half of the Seven Kingdoms now under the tentative control of Queen Daenerys, the remaining kings begin to see how vulnerable they are, as all their domains remain within striking distance. There is an unspoken agreement between Tywin Lannister, Robb Stark, and Stannis Baratheon that Daenerys is the greatest threat. Not only that, but her Dothraki threatens to destroy the very kingdoms they are fighting for. Slowly, they begin to redirect their efforts to face her army. Tywin abandons his campaign in the Riverlands and focuses on strengthening King's Landing, while Robb decides to abandon his gains in the Westerlands to fortify the Trident as best he can. Stannis, meanwhile, tries to undermine their war effort by reaching out to the Stormlands serving Daenerys. He promises pardons to any man who defects, while Melisandre orders his men to spread stories of the abuse the Dothraki commit in their raids. In this regard, they are aided by an unexpected ally, Lord Beric, and his Brotherhood without banners. Their desire to protect the small folk leads them to join forces with Stannis in his guerrilla war. They soon begin to raid Dothraki supply lines, freeing prisoners and providing food for the ravaged villages. This emboldens the small folk to begin rebelling in some places, particularly the Stormlands, which are distant enough from the Khalasar. Some knights even join in after tiring of being looked down upon by the Dothraki. But his greatest victory is the death of one of Khal Drogo's blood riders, Kaholo, who is sent with a relief force to the Stormlands. Rumors abound that a shadowy assassin was responsible, which sends rumors across the Khalasar. Tywin, meanwhile, tries to sow dissent among the Westerosi serving in Daenerys' army. He starts by bribing away some warriors to return to the Dothraki Sea, or paying lords to have the garrisons expelled. But perhaps his greatest tool is to remove Daenerys Targaryen's advisor, Jorah Mormont. He secretly sends her letters that Jorah Mormont sent to the spider, Varys, revealing that he was spying on them. Shocked, Daenerys orders Jorah Mormont to be brought before her. He reveals everything, saying that King Robert promised him a pardon if he reported his activity, meaning that the assassination attempt was technically his fault. The only thing that stops Khal Drogo from executing him is his aid in keeping her safe. For that reason, they allow Jorah to leave, but he must never show himself to his Khalasar again, lest he be executed. The damage is done, though, as now the rest of the Dothraki warriors begin to grumble about this campaign. If one Westerosi would betray them like this, what is stopping the rest of them from doing the same? Some warriors urge Drogo to kill all the Westerosi soldiers with them, and level this continent to turn into a new Dothraki Sea. Others suggest this entire expedition might be cursed, and that they should return home. Tensions soon arise in the camp once again, as fights and even killings happen within the camp. Lords and Dothraki captains threaten to take action in retribution for each slight. Daenerys tries her best to restrain the nobles, while even Khal Drogo finds his orders in question. Ser Barristan suggests that the only way they can keep the army together is victory, while Daenerys suggests attacking King's Landing. Barristan rejects this idea, as it is too risky and the siege will take too long. Instead, he proposes that they invade the Riverlands to cut the Seven Kingdoms in half. This threatens the war efforts of the three remaining kings. Losing the Riverlands will cost Robb half his kingdom. It will cut Tywin off completely from the Westerlands and put them within striking distance of King's Landing, threatening Stannis' claim. Although not officially aligned, this threat is finally enough to spur the three kings into action as they agree to aid each other in this battle. No sooner are the agreements hammered out do the Dothraki burst into the Riverlands in a surge of fire and flame. However, they find many of the fields they intend to plunder already burned, as Roose Bolton orders a scored earth policy for the area surrounding Harrenhal. Meanwhile, the river fords are manned with defenders, and the woods are thick with foresters. These attacks greatly slow down Khal Drogo's process, slowly whittling down his army as he fights for every step of the land. Still, he eventually manages to force a crossing, and Roose retreats to Harrenhal with his 10,000 men. The burned and broken castle serves as a temporary bulwark and a much-needed shelter that neutralizes the Targaryen army. The narrow passages force the Dothraki cavalry to dismount and Westerosi soldiers to maneuver carefully through the ruins as archers slip through the ruins and defenders rain down stones and pitch on them. But these only delay the inevitable, as their foe outnumbers the North host by 6-1. As the night fades, Daenerys' army begins to overwhelm them. Dothraki fight like demons, cutting through the outer defenses and setting the gates ablaze. The Dornish spearmen, led by Oberyn Martell, press the advantage, lock shields, or scale the walls to gain the high ground. Reachmen and Stormlanders fight amidst the ruins alone or in small groups, battering their way through the halls. Khal Drogo himself rides ahead of his dismounted warriors, wielding his arakh with brutal efficiency. Yet Roose's strategy is clear: delay. He orders a retreat to the inner keep, sacrificing ground but buying time. He knows reinforcements are coming. From the northwest, the sound of war horns cut through the air. Robb Stark rides at the head of 15,000 men from the north and the Riverlands. Wolves adorn their banners, rallying the men inside the walls. Robb's cavalry slams into the flank of Daenerys' army, scattering their rear guard. Stark longbowmen unleash devastating volleys, targeting the Dornish spearmen and Westerosi defectors. At the sight of the young wolf, many Riverland defectors waver, and some outright desert back to their liege lord or surrender. Khal Drogo orders his men to abandon Harrenhal to face the defenders in the open where they can use their superior numbers. A rearguard forms to try and hold back the advancing Northmen as the others hurry out to reform their lines. The Targaryen host just barely manages to regroup outside, just as the battered rearguard gives away. Khal Drogo is about to order a charge when a third force appears on the horizon. Tywin Lannister, with 20,000 disciplined soldiers, emerges from the east. The 4,000 cavalry of his force, led by Adam Marbrand, gallop forward and crash into the lightly armored Dornish wing, cutting a bloody swath through the Dornish side. With the king in the north hammering the Dothraki from the left and Tywin hitting the Dornish on the right. This leaves Barristan in the center to rally his men. They push forward to support their cavalry. Even lightly armored, the Dothraki and Dornishmen fight like beasts, meeting their opponents fearlessly as the fields of Harrenhal are watered by the blood of kings and queensmen. A standstill soon develops as the king's army pushes them back, but the Khalasar just barely holds. As this fighting takes place, the final piece comes into play. A small contingent numbering some thousands men is sent by Stannis, led by Roland Storm. They creep up from the woods and strike at the Dothraki camp. The few defenders are soon overrun and the camp is captured. This breaks the Targaryen army as men hurry back to save their belongings or simply to retreat to safety. Whole units begin to desert despite Khal Drogo's attempt to rally his men. Eventually, the army routs entirely as the camp is overrun. Daenerys herself is nearly captured in her tent, but is only saved by Barristan Selmy, who rushes in and escorts her to safety. Regrouping with Khal Drogo and a force of about 3,000 men, they make their way back to Harvest Hall. But soon after, Daenerys feels her water break, and Ser Barristan hastily escorts her ahead to Harvest Hall. Its garrison remains loyal to Daenerys and allows her a hastily prepared chamber. Hours later, cries echo through the hall, not of pain, but of new life. Rhaego. Daenerys, exhausted but triumphant, gazes at her son, a glimmer of hope in her weary eyes. But outside, the world remains in chaos. Khal Drogo arrives a few days later, having regrouped with some of his forces. He spends a day with them to rest and celebrate this birth. For a moment, the war seems far away, and though both wish they could remain there for eternity, Drogo knows he must ride out. But as he opens the windows of their chamber, a cold wind blows in. The candles in their room flicker and die, just as a shadow materializes behind Drogo. Daenerys screams, and the Khal whirls around, swiping his arakh at the figure's neck, though all it cuts is mist before the shadow's dagger plunges into Drogo's heart and vanishes. Khal Drogo drops to the ground without a sound. A moment later, Oberyn Martell rushes in, sword in hand, but finds the shadow gone. Daenerys explains what she saw. The Prince of Dorne calms the young queen, having the body taken out. Once she regains her bearings, he squeezes her hand.
Assassins. A shadow. This was Stannis' doing. His Red Woman. This place is no longer safe for you. We must retreat to Sunspear. There you will be safe as we plan our counterattack.
But how? My forces are scattered, my allies divided, and the people of this land despise me.
This land is not yours. Your forefathers faced a similar problem when they first set foot on this land. They will not love you, Daenerys. Not now, and perhaps not ever. But your ancestor Aegon did not conquer Westeros with words or mercy alone. He conquered it with fire and blood. You are a Targaryen, and your enemies will give you no mercy. Show them the same.
That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.